Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm joined by the Honorable Councilman Paul Krikorian. There's several items on the agenda today. We do have 4 items, 2 rather interesting ones. The Director of Planning's oral status. I don't see the Director of Planning today. Are we expecting them today, Dan? No? Okay. We're not expecting them? Okay. So we don't have the Director with us today. We have quite a few cards, Councilmember, on 2 and 3. And we've been joined by Councilmember John Perry for item 2. But my understanding that item 1, we can move on consent and see no cards. If you're okay with that. So we'll move item number 1. That brings us right to item number 2. And what I'd like to do is, Councilor Perry, I would invite you to speak, or would you like to hear the presentation from the staff first and then speak? It's up to you. Okay. So I'd like to welcome Councilor John Perry from the 9th District. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And I appreciate your consideration of this item today. And I'm here to speak in support of the redevelopment of the Wilshire Grand Hotel. I want to thank the team, Hanjin International, Thomas Properties, for investing in our city and putting forth an extraordinary project with an exceptional community benefits package. Second, I have to acknowledge the hard work of the city team, especially the planning department and the office of the city attorney, including Kevin Keller and Shauna Bonston from planning. The applicant has been working on these entitlements for over 22 months. The redevelopment of the Wilshire Grand Hotel will provide a host of meaningful benefits to the city of Los Angeles, including the creation of new jobs, a significant financial contribution to the general fund through new taxes, and multiple public infrastructure improvements. The City Planning Commission considered this item on December 16th, 2010, and approved the project as recommended by City Planning. As evidenced today, as you will see in a minute, the amount of community support at this hearing, you will see that this is something that people are excited about and anticipate because of the job opportunities that it brings. I also think it's a direct result of the comprehensive development agreement that has been crafted and is extremely inclusive. The development agreement will provide the project applicant with certainty by maintaining all development rights granted for a period of 20 years in exchange for public benefits. The Wilshire Grand development will provide local and regional benefits. There is approximately $74 million in community benefits in this development agreement, and those benefits include the creation of new city tax revenues beginning in 2015 at $22 million on an annual basis. The creation of new jobs, 7,300 new construction jobs, and 10,900 direct and indirect and induced permanent jobs, of which 9,700 will be net new jobs above what currently exists at this site. It should be highlighted that the developer will enter into a project labor agreement and participate in existing apprenticeship programs for all of the construction trades and for the permanent hospitality jobs. The developer will comply with the city's living wage ordinance for non-retail entities within the project. Additionally, the developer will provide comprehensive health care, welfare, and a severance agreement for the existing 480 Wilshire Grand Hotel employees, and the developer has agreed to a collective bargaining agreement that will be applicable to the new hotel. This is an incredible package, and I am very proud to be able to support this. The development agreement provides for solid infrastructure improvements. In Phase 1, the developer will provide approximately $4 million to streetscape work and pedestrian improvements for 6 blocks on 7th Street and Wilshire Boulevard, and in Phase 2, the developer will provide an additional $4 million. Finally, the developer will provide a mobility hub in the plaza area of 300 square feet with free rent for 3 years. The space will accommodate bike parking, bike lockers, shared bikes. This is a prime example of how a large development can positively impact the surrounding area. And I have an amendment that I would like to state for the record, that the development agreement is asking that as a condition of approval, that the developer be required to pay for the environmental review that will be necessary to create the Figueroa Corridor Supplemental Use District. So let me just restate that again, that the development agreement should be amended and as a condition of approval, require the developer to pay for the environmental review that will be necessary to create the Figueroa Corridor Supplemental Use District. Specifically, the developer will pay $400,000 towards the environmental study and related costs. The establishment of the Figueroa and 7th Sign District will establish standards and guidelines to improve the aesthetic environment, reduce visual blight associated with signage clutter, and regulate signage as part of the development of downtown Los Angeles. The Figueroa and 7th Sign District will ensure that the proposed signage is responsive and integrated with the aesthetic character of the structures on which they are located and positioned in an architecturally compatible manner. Additionally, the district will mandate well-designed signs that contribute to Central City's visual environment while protecting residential districts and adjoining non-residential districts from the potential adverse impacts of signs. Signage is an important part of downtown's architectural context and contributes to the city's character. This particular proposed district provides a linkage from the proposed Wilshire Grand redevelopment project to the convention center with respect to the creation of a nexus, and should create a lot of, I would say, excitement for tourists and visitors and residents who come to this area for entertainment or sports activities. The redevelopment Wilshire Grand Hotel will contribute rooms to the convention center, long-term 3 to 4 day conventions, and will codify that arrangement through a room block agreement. So to that end, my next amendment is allowing architectural lighting on vertical sign level 3. It should be clarified from a technical point of view that the actual area of lighting would be a maximum of 18% of any facade in signage level 3. I would also like to make an amendment requesting that city planning make the necessary adjustments to vertical sign levels 2 and 3 to allow for varied spacing between individual lighting components. For level 2, the spacing of 12 inches is appropriate with an allowance for a 20% adjustment of this number as specific technology is identified. For level 3, architectural lighting will not cover windows, so a minimum spacing of 6 inches is appropriate between lighting elements. My office has worked very, very closely with the Office of the City Attorney and City Planning to craft this district, and I appreciate the dialogue that we have had. And I have incorporated all of their recommendations, particularly those from the City Attorney, into this and put this forth today. Now, there are certain thresholds that must be met in order to justify the sign district, and I would like to offer the next following amendments as conditions to project approval. The redevelopment of the Wilshire Grand Hotel will be an iconic development. It will be the first high-rise office building in downtown in more than 22 years. I would like to offer an amendment requiring that the sign district set forth objective thresholds that must be met before any off-site signage is permitted. These thresholds include minimum building height, floor area, and number of hotel rooms. These threshold requirements ensure that the city is granting sign rights to an iconic building. The second amendment is the sign district will contain a sign reduction component for all off-site signs. This will ensure that signs are being removed from inappropriate areas like residential neighborhoods before they can be placed in an appropriate manner within the 7th and Figueroa sign district. The importance of this project to the city cannot be understated. Currently, the Wilshire Grand Hotel is losing money and would close absent this redevelopment. If it closes, there would be a loss of jobs, a loss of tax revenue, and a shuttered hotel and office building. We need to move this development forward. The city would be sending the wrong message to potential investors and jeopardize real economic development. If we do not move quickly on this project, we will jeopardize their financing, and all approvals need to be in place by March the 30th to ensure project financing. As we know, next year the city is projecting a $350 million deficit. This redevelopment project will positively impact the general fund by creating $22 million a year in new revenue. This means areas like Pico Union, South Los Angeles, and others where the employment rate is well over 26% as compared to LA County have an opportunity on the horizon. And I think it's incumbent upon us to move projects like this forward in a timely and thoughtful manner. I don't need to reiterate the facts other than to say that this will create greatly to the development of our city, and with the signage is very necessary in the proper urban context to be able to construct this project. I did introduce a council motion asking the planning department to commence work on the Figueroa Corridor Supplemental Use District, and look forward to working with you in this committee to move that process forward. So finally, with that in mind, I would request that the council or the committee include a finding that the establishment of the Figueroa and 7th Sign District will build upon the signage plan detailed in the Los Angeles Sports and Entertainment District specific plan, and work in conjunction with the proposed Figueroa Corridor Supplemental Use District, which will encompass both sides of Figueroa between Wilshire and Olympic. And I would also like the planning department to prepare such findings in conjunction with the city attorney's office. The Figueroa Corridor SUD will link these sign districts in a coordinated approach to signing on the Figueroa Corridor consistent with the city's interest in community aesthetics. I would also like to make an amendment to request the city attorney to review the 7th and Figueroa Sign District and the development agreement for form and legality prior to council consideration on March 9th. And my final amendment is to request that the city attorney and the planning department work with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst to review the effective date for this project's approval. I know that there is some debate on the effective date and when vesting tentative tract map was approved, or if the effective date is when council approves the project. I would like this issue resolved before it goes to council, and I'd like a report back to you, Mr. Chair, and to my office before this item goes to council on March the 9th. There will be requests to move this item forward, and I hope that you'll be able to do that. This project has been in public review, and this team of developers has been extremely compliant and working with our city process for 22 months. The draft environmental impact report was circulated, and the final environmental impact report was circulated. This has been a long and comprehensive process. There were only 2 appeals filed on this project, and 1 appeal is from the applicant. The other appeal has been responded to in additional responses to comments that city planning issued on Friday, February 18th. So I hope that the committee will be able to approve this project, and I appreciate your consideration and allowing me to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Perry. And I just want to say your articulation is very sharp. It echoes the former life of a planning deputy. But I want to thank you for your presentation, your hard work, your office's coordination of such an ambitious program.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That being said, we'd like to ask the staff to give the report. And Roberto, for the record, can you read what is being considered?
Sure, council members. What's before you is the actual final EIR for the project and the development agreement, and as well as the associated entitlements and the proposed supplemental use district. And the project, my understanding will be the tallest project in the downtown area, and it's located in CD9.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Kevin Keller, City Planning. We have a very large project. I'll cover the entitlements very briefly and try to get to the hearing. As was just stated, this is a major development project in the Central City area, located on the block bounded by Wilshire Boulevard, Figueroa Street, 7th Street, and Francisco. The site is currently developed with the Wilshire Grand Hotel, which will be demolished. The development proposes a maximum of 2.397 approximately square feet of development, including 560 hotel rooms, 100 residential units, 1.5 million square feet of office, 275,000 square feet of restaurant, retail, and amenity areas in 2 towers flanking a large public open space plaza at the corner of Figueroa and 7th. The project is directly across the street from our Metro Center subway portal. The project may be built in phases. The first phase is proposed to be a hotel, built to a maximum height of 750 feet. The second tower would be the office tower, built to a maximum height of 1,250 feet. The site is in the heart of our financial district with surrounding towers built to heights of approximately 717 feet. The proposal, as approved by the City Planning Commission, contained a land use equivalency program where specific uses may be exchanged for other uses based on specific criteria and rates. It also included a design flexibility program recommended to allow a controlled degree of flexibility in final tower design, subject to the design plan submitted at the time of the application. The requested entitlements and 2 submitted appeals have been circulated to the committee. They are lengthy. Allow me to briefly summarize the main points. 3 of the entitlements require council action today. Others are in front of the council only upon appeal. The 3 entitlements requiring council action include a transfer of floor area rights, also called TFAR, to the project site from the convention center. This action brings the proposed floor area of the project to 13:1. The maximum approved transfer would be 1,485,458 square feet from the convention center to this project. Based on the most recent approved transfers in council records, the convention center would have a remaining balance of approximately 4.5 million square feet for future FAR floor area ratio requests. This FAR would be purchased pursuant to the adopted procedures, generating up to a 7.4 million transfer of floor area rights payment to the city and an 8.9 million public benefit payment to the city. The project, as we also heard, and I can't summarize it better than Councilmember Perry, the project also requests a supplemental use district for signage. The City Planning Commission recommended approval of this district only after reducing the amount of signage proposed and requiring mitigations as to intensity, animation, hours of operation, maximum size, and inclusion of a billboard reduction component. Planning staff had approved a maximum sign height of 150 feet. That is what is in front of the committee today. The request, I believe, under appeal is the addition of architectural lighting above that height. 150 feet is a natural demarcation point for downtown that is the city's historic height limit. Most of the surrounding buildings in your historic core or throughout downtown are about 150 feet tall, about 13 stories. Above that height, there was no signage approved, but the request was to have architectural lighting and that kind of decoration. That's in front of the committee today. The sign district is also subject to numerous appeal comments from adjacent property owners and from the applicant. The third item requiring council approval is a development agreement. Planning has recommended approval of a 20-year development agreement for the project, subject to the provision of a comprehensive community benefit package. As we heard, the community benefit package includes affordable housing payments to support the restoration of the Dunbar Hotel, as well as a project labor agreement, hotel job training, local hiring, living wage program, collective bargaining agreement, streetscape improvements, and metro improvements, including the installation of real-time arrival and departure information in the plaza for the adjacent Metro Center station. The planning has worked very carefully with the developer on the proposed 7th Street improvements, totaling approximately $9 million. which will also include the Wilshire and 7th Street Harbor Freeway Bridge overpass connections improvements to better connect this project in this portion of downtown to Central City West, directly to the west of the freeway. One detail that's come up under appeal, you'll hear about this, is that developer has requested the inclusion of an estoppel clause into the development agreement. This is something planning can provide. However, there will be no automatic presumption of approval within 30 days as suggested by the applicant. I can go to that more detail, but that's a very straightforward thing for us to include if that comes up today. The remainder of the items are in front of council on appeal. This includes a master conditional use permit for alcohol, a major conditional use permit for a development of this size, a conditional use permit to permit a heliport incidental to an office building, a wireless telecommunication conditional use permit, a shared parking and reduced on-site parking determination, and site plan review for the proposal. Planning has prepared a response to comments which has been distributed to the committee. We also have additional hard copies here if anyone would like a copy, and we can email it as well, to respond to many of the comments that have been received over the last few weeks on this project. And we also have submitted some revised findings for the committee to include as part of an action, and also 2 pages of additional conditions. These conditions, I believe, are universally acceptable to the applicant. They mainly respond to the details brought up in the response to comments. Obviously, there's some additional mitigations that I'm sure will be requested today. Just want to point out that any action should adopt those findings and move those conditions if that's the will of the committee. Finally, let me provide some quick background on some of the major appeal points. In response to appeal points raised regarding the proposed heliport, planning is recommending a minimum height of 817 feet for such a heliport. The adjacent building is approximately 717 feet tall. This would place the heliport a minimum of 100 feet taller than the adjacent property, thereby resolving some of the noise issues for that property. In response to the appeal points raised regarding project circulation, the project does adhere to the mandatory downtown design guide and downtown street standards, which were recently adopted